All right. Oh, kia ora, David.
Kia ora, Jonnie. Nice to see you.
So good to have you here. I appreciate the summary shirt being between gigs.
Well, I'm on holiday. This is good. This is my little break between gigs. Yeah, exactly.
I have been talking to people recently, David, about always about public sector innovation. That's sort of my gig, my passion, what I love to do and sort of hear about. And I've been talking to people who do different.
Yeah.
Right. And in a government setting, how have they managed to innovate? How have they pushed through the resistance barriers that are faced in government?
Yeah.
And I thought I'd start by asking you. Well, you literally wrote a book about innovators in New Zealand and people who have pushed through, mostly not in a government sense, admittedly.
Yeah.
But I'd just love to hear from you about what you think's changed from the time of writing that book.
10 years ago was when I
Plus
wrote
years
Number 8 Rewired with John
Yeah.
Bridges. And then we've written another one since then, Number 8 Recharged,
Yeah.
which is all about sort of modern New Zealand innovation, and Silver Linings, another book about the creativity and innovation that happened during COVID. So it's kind of it's a bit of a hobby / passion, is this idea of innovation.
And
One thing that we have as a real problem, I think, is that we think that government sector and innovation are kind of an oxymoron. And I don't believe that at all. And if you look at many of the major innovations globally, they've come out of some sort of public sector environment. There's a sort of myth that governments don't innovate, business innovates. Businesses do innovate, but so do governments. You look at the internet and GPS and many different technology things have come out of government's innovation, backing usually individual brilliance.
So often government has to innovate because so often in the areas you mentioned, but also social style innovation, they don't have the ROI for a private sector to get involved in. So government really has to take the lead in that. What are you seeing for your time as a public servant? I always tell people that David Downs is the closest thing New Zealand has to a celebrity in the public sector. Actually,
was pretty close.
We'll call you guys 1 and 2. We won't argue over who's 1 and 2. So what have you seen in government that has got you excited? Because you've worked in private sector as well. What's got you excited about the role of innovation as a public servant? And in government more generally?
I'll give you the good and the bad. I think, the thing about the governments exist to do things that wouldn't naturally happen. That's sort of the point of it. If things could naturally work because the market does something or because business or because consumers would behave in a different way, you kind of don't need a government. So by definition, they're kind of treating something we call an intervention logic. Like why does the government need to intervene in something? So that happens and to create things, like science institutes or where there's a collective good but no individual benefit big enough for that individual. So you've got to fund medical science, or you've got to fund a healthcare system or an education system. So within the government, I think there are some things that the wonderful thing is that government has a big impact. It's on one hand, it's slow moving. On the other hand, it has a big impact. And so you put up with sometimes the fact that it can be a bit slower than a normal environment, but you're having system change. And you sort of mentioned about sort of social innovation. Some of the social innovations in New Zealand, Marriage Equality Act, the anti-nuclear bills, the first country to give women the vote. These are big social innovations that happen at a country level scale, often because individuals really pushed and pushed and pushed. But then that's how all change happens. It starts with an individual. But then governments have the ability to then turn that into some sort of system change thing. And I think that's amazing. So that's all the good stuff about innovation in government. The bit that worries me is there's this rhetoric that actually government can't be innovative and therefore we shouldn't be doing this and we should leave it all to the private sector. And I just don't agree with that. Fundamentally think after now 15 years of working in the government, where I came in probably with that attitude, I'd have to say. I came in with the attitude that I don't want to turn into one of those government people. But actually now I go, there's amazing people. There's incredible stuff. If we harness the best of the creative innovation and the power of sort of these large organisations in government and get the best out of both, then I think you can have real impact.
So what's the ingredients when people do succeed? Because I think you talk about private sector and innovating and and sometimes I feel that in the private sector we are tracking for startups that we're often working with a credit issue, they're tracking for capital and customers, right? And that's all very well. Government already has the customers, we already have a monopoly in scale, but how do we overcome the resistance factors that we do face in government? There's look, we all know the aversion to risk, slowness, tech interoperability issues, changes of ministerial mandate, all sorts of things that people.
That all sounds pretty familiar. Yeah.
That list as resistance factors.
Yeah.
People, I find, often have to overcome those factors.
They do.
How do they do that when they succeed?
I mean, every change is by definition moving away from something safe and normal into an unknown space. And governments are very good at maintaining an equilibrium. And so you can kind of understand that change is therefore difficult. And it needs tenacity. It's more of a psychographic than anything. It's tenacious, vision and purpose driven, people who are willing to actually say, I believe in this and I'm going to really make sure that this works. And then other people to back it. You need to be able to make a convincing argument, explain why it works, explain why it's a better thing or environment or system state that you're going to get to. And yes, have the support or the kind of the atmosphere around you. We talk in the government about this, the authorising environment. I'm giving you lots of trendy government phrases. The authorising environment means around you, you better have people that agree with you, your stakeholders, your funding entities, your monitoring agencies. They all better kind of understand where you're heading. But then at the nub of any change will be an individual or a small group of people who just believe and know that this is the right thing to do and will push and take the risks. And again, that can happen and does happen in governments.
Yeah. Okay, so we're tracking towards AI.
Yeah.
And there's a big narrative, obviously, at the moment around this.
Even if we don't know what it means, there's a big narrative.
Even if we don't know what it means, potentially. So what are you thinking about that? What conversations have you had?
Yeah.
Where do you think there's opportunity? And I suppose, can it be more than just productivity?
Yeah, I mean, AI has become a little bit of a sort of a talisman magic sort of thing, a little bit misunderstood in terms of its scope. And, I'd say some of the technology industry and companies and people are a bit guilty of a little bit overhyping it at times. It will change things, but it's not going to change everything, but it's definitely going to enable scenarios that are completely unthought of today, which is wonderful. And the great thing about AI is it's not a technology. Even though it is.
Yeah, okay.
It's an opportunity for people who don't really have the access to sort of the technology training and stuff that some of us might have. And it's an opportunity for them to kind of really realise the benefits of what technology can bring them. So the word technology sort of puts 50% of the people off as soon as they hear it. Yeah. But if you think of AI as just an ability to get a lot more stuff done more quickly, prototyping, etc. And for me in government, yes, there's a definite productivity benefit, and ministerially, that's one of the things that I know they're really keen on, understanding how the public service could operate more effectively. But actually, as an innovation engine, as a partner in creativity, as a coach, all the wonderful things that you can do with AI at an individual level, but then also at a kind of a departmental or organizational level, you can start thinking of new scenarios, new ways that citizens or other people can interact with your agency or whatever. So there's lots to it. I mean, I've been involved in the government's AI working group, this sort of so-called expert group. None of us are experts, by the way. It's the first thing I always say. If you call someone an expert in AI, you're probably wrong. But one of the things we're looking at is it's actually quite hard for us to think of the scenarios where AI is going to make a difference, but there are plenty of them. And start with the things that we do know. Start with with the personal productivity and the team-based productivity, but then be open to further innovation.
So experimentation is going to be such a key part of that. Yeah. You obviously do a lot of work with startups from an investment community and things as well. And experimenting, learning fast is important. But in government, we don't have the ability to move fast and break things. That doesn't really
can't
work.
do that if it's a welfare system,
or,
a tax policy or whatever.
But we still have to allow environments where experimentation happens. How do we incentivize government to experiment? How do we allow an operating environment, authorizing environment, like you say, where that can take place, where we can learn and achieve different outcomes? Because I think that's a big part of the worry.
Yeah.
People say, no, you can't fail, you can't get things wrong.
I'll be on the front page of the paper.
You can't be on the front page of the paper, the top post test.
Yeah. But I mean, the nice thing about it, I'm very excited about this, by the way, because I'm just about to go into this new role in Education New Zealand. And I think it's an organisation, it's a high-performing organisation already. And I think if you layer over the top of that, the opportunities that AI can give us in an environment where actually we're not the the holding up the fabric of society in a really tense way. And, there's areas you don't want to experiment in, as I say, prison systems or the justice system or whatever. Yeah. But in the areas we're going to focus on, which is international education, why wouldn't we think about how we do our marketing a bit differently and how we coordinate things and how we, highlight and target individuals that might want to come to New Zealand. So there's places where there are sort of sandboxes that you can work in and learn from. And I think one of the valuable things that I'd love to see in place, and this is not an advertisement for Creative HQ, but it's going to sound like it. How do we transfer learnings from one organisation to another, and therefore not all starting at sort of level 101, but someone starts and does something and it works pretty well, or it doesn't work well, and that goes to someone else, and then we're talking about and going up. And at the moment, it doesn't feel like we've necessarily got all the things in place. The GDDA, the New Government Digital Delivery Agency, will be a bit of a hub for that, but it will need a bit of outside-in thinking, and it'll need potentially us to have a different relationship with sort of software vendors and others to come to the party to actually say, look, let's invest in some experimentation, and then start with the safe things, and then progressively get to the the more difficult things.
You are going into this new role. You've been telling the story of New Zealand for some years as the CEO of NZ Story, which is about like external branding, if people don't know what that is, because sometimes they don't. Now going into this Education New Zealand, you've been telling the story about New Zealand. Now you're focusing in that on education.
Yes.
Was that an easy transition? Is that a natural transition? What can be the sort of UVP, if you like, of our education story? Yeah.
It's cool. Actually, the role in the Education New Zealand is not a million miles from New Zealand Story. And that, we believe, our fundamental belief is that New Zealand is a country that has some unique appeal in the world. Yeah. And if people knew more about us, it would help drive up our desirability, but also our relevance as a country, obviously using some marketing phrases. And when you have relevance and desirability, and then you can start to attract a higher premium, so people come to a country like New Zealand because they perceive it as safe, as trustworthy, as a country that cares for people in place, innovative. Or if you can make sure that is the brand that's out there in the world for whatever purpose, it's great. When you come to new education, it's perfect. I think we've got this unfair advantage. If you're in the world at the moment, it's a pretty unsafe place, a difficult place to navigate. Yeah. And you're thinking about where you will go to be educated or where you'll send your child to go, because this is sort of from all the way from primary, secondary through to tertiary and private training. You want to go to a country that is known for innovation and care, but is a safe and trusted environment. And so we've got all that. So for me, that was the big change. Is that I go from this really lovely being able to tell the story of New Zealand, and I loved it. But this is a bit more accountable in some ways, because now we're actually going this particular sector. We haven't rebounded as much as we'd like to post-COVID. And we think this is the time in the world where New Zealand does have an opportunity and an advantage. So let's go for it.
Okay, is all those things you talked about our edge, or as the marketer, what's our lead, what's our edge, what's going to get the cut through? Do you think?
I think the things that used to be some of our challenge are now our opportunity. So distance, people go, "Oh, you're a long way away." Yeah, we are. Yeah. It's not as far as you think, by the way, but actually being a long way away maybe not a bad thing. But that trustworthiness is another big one. Our institutions, particularly our tertiary institutions, are right up there in the top, 100 in the world, 500 in the world, and we've got this reputation that is our advantage. So we're going on, 200 years of New Zealand's history and reputation has led us to a point where we are one of the most desirable places in the world. When we look at all the international statistics, New Zealand's in the top 10, top 20 of almost anything you measure related to, lack of corruption, trustworthiness, ease of business, desirability of a place to go. And there's no real reason for that to happen, but we just have this beautiful coincidence of our geography and the people that have been here and our history and who we are as individuals. And that's come together to create this real unique brand for New Zealand. So that's kind of our advantage, is that brand New Zealand is really strong.
Yeah, nice. Okay, so lastly, other public sector leaders, what would you, if they came to you and said, how can I create an environment which encourages innovation, encourages better use of technology, encourages experimentation and AI? Yeah. What advice would you say?
Step one is take it out of the IT department. Yeah. IT, but don't get me wrong, don't disrespect. I worked in IT most of my career.
Yeah.
It's not their job to be innovative. It's their job to put the
work
tools
out
in
how to
place.
make that.
Yeah. So if you're a leader in an organization and you're thinking about the impact this might have, you personally have to get involved. Mm-hmm. And not just do the 101 chat GPT, write a poem to my mother level type stuff. Yeah. You actually have to daily, weekly, monthly create some understanding of this stuff. And again, it's not technology, it's a tool. And then you'll start to uncover. So that creates the kind of the leadership, vibe. And then you have to encourage from bottom up. Because I actually think most of the innovation in most agencies will not, again, come out of the IT department. It'll come from individuals in the organization who can see a better way of doing something. And are probably right now doing a bit of skunk works on the outside with a bit of Claude or ChatGPT and are feeling a bit worried that they're going to get found out by the IT department. And you've got to get rid of that, And I'm not saying, be reckless with personal data or organizational things or whatever, but I'm saying give people the permission space, the kind of safe sandboxes to actually create the experimentation and do the little prototypes, lots of them. So you as the leader are understanding it, and then you've got prototypes coming around the place, and then you start only then, 6 months or a year, and you start to create an IT or a sort of an AI strategy. A lot of people are starting with strategy and policy, and actually I think it's just a recipe for.
Got to work out what
works. Yeah, and you get organizations who are good at doing this to come in and help you, because creativity is what you're actually trying to do. The technology and the AI is just a way of absolutely shortcutting and speeding up the creativity cycle. Most of the things that we are going to be able to see come true probably could happen without AI, but AI is just going to make it happen at 1,000 times the pace.
Yeah, nice. And we've got some great ways to do it.
I was just going to say, if you want a partner to help you do that, there you go.
No, amazing. All right, hey, thank you so much. Been a pleasure.
Beautiful.
Until next time, thanks so much.
Architect.